Hi everybody, this is Julia, and today I have a video for you that I'm very excited about, and that is about going the extra mile. I am going to show you how you can mask a scene and mix different coloring mediums to achieve an amazing look on your card. Now I'm going to be using just this mouse from the stamp, just the mouse, not the rest. I'm going to be using the umbrella and the this flower border here, and then also I'm going to be using these birch trees. And we're all going to put them on one card. So let's start first by stamping the scene. I only want to use the little mouse here, so I'm using masking tape to mask off the rest of the stamp so I won't ink it up. This is just regular post-it tape. You could use post-it notes or just paper with temporary adhesive or something. Just make sure you're not inking up the rest of the stamp and only the part that you want to use. So I'm just tapping my ink pad very lightly to the stamp because first I have to stamp it onto a piece of acetate that I'm going to be using with my Stamp-A-Magic. This is my Stamp-A-Magic here. I'm just sliding this in and stamping the stamp onto the acetate, and I'm sliding it into this green positioner tool there. So ignore the mask. I'll be needing that mask later, just not now. And I'm sliding the acetate to where I want the actual stamped image to go. And I'm not sure if you can see it there or not, but I actually taped down the rest of my card to make sure that it won't move. You don't want anything to move in that instance here. Okay, I repositioned my green positioner. I'm grabbing my acrylic block and now I'm sliding it back in and stamping onto the actual card base. And thanks to the Stamp-A-Magic, I can control exactly where everything goes. Now I'm grabbing that mask back and masking off the mouse because I want to make sure that the mouse is in the foreground and everything else goes into the background. I have stamped the birch trees onto the Stamp-A-Magic. I'm taking the acetate sheet away, and I'm coming back in with the actual stamp, sliding that into the Stamp-A-Magic and pressing down. And that will stamp the trees where I want them to go. The problem with rubber stamps is you don't see anything. That's why you have to use a tool to make sure that your stamp in position. Now I'm masking off the trees. Yes, I'm doing a lot of masking, but believe me, it's totally worth it when you see the final result. And I'm now coming in with this flower border. I already stamped it on the acetate. I'm positioning it where I want it to go. You don't need a perfect impression on the acetate, it's just to give you an idea. And I'm stamping this down and it went there perfectly where I wanted it to go. And then I can just reuse that acetate sheet and slide it there so I can extend that line with the flowers, sliding the positioner back in, positioning the acetate, taking away the acetate and stamping down. And you can see I extended this line, and I'm going to do the very same thing now on the opposite end behind the mouse. So it will look like there's a field of flowers behind the mouse and the trees. Sorry for the noise. I have the window open. It's very hot right now. So that was a car. Sorry about that. The car might come back. So sorry about that in advance. And here is the rest of the flowers. And then last but not least, I'm stamping the umbrella so it looks like as if the wind has pulled the umbrella out of the mouse's hand. So, and now comes the magic part. Let's remove the masks. So first off, I'm going to remove the mask for the trees, and you have to be careful when you remove the mask. Depending on what kind of masking you use material, the ink might still be wet on that, so make sure that you don't transfer it onto your stamp project. After all this work you've put into this, you don't want that. Voila, there we go. When I revealed this, I was so insanely happy that I could create this, like I was able to create this scene. It turned out perfectly. I grabbed my Copic multiliner. Any fine liner will do in this case. Well, should be waterproof for the technique that I'm going to be using. And I'm just adding in squiggles to show that there's there's grass, there's the ground, so that the flowers are grounded. And you can see there's no signs to it. I'm just doing squiggles. So it was very easy to do. All right, so this is our final stamped image. Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, see, I did this like in the middle of the night, literally in the middle of the night. So I'm not entirely clear on what I did when. The trees kind of ended before the card ended. So I'm just drawing in some lines, like basically extending the tree shape upwards and adding some squiggly lines to indicate that's a birch tree. I don't even know. How do you call the skin of the tree? You know what I mean, right? Yeah, anyways, you know what I mean. So I'm just extending the lines here carefully and putting in the squiggles. It's literally just squiggles. Like it's not even a straight line. And there we go. The trees are extended and go through over the entire card. Now my first step is going to be coloring with Inktense pencils. Inktense pencils are, on the one hand, they react with water, and I'm actually picking up the color directly from the pencil. On the other hand, once they dry, they are permanent. So that's unlike watercolor, because you can go over them, over a dried layer, and not reactivate what's beneath it. There was an additional challenge, and I should have checked that before I started coloring. I'm using Strathmore, it's very difficult to pronounce, Strathmore Bristol Vellum 300 series. And that's not really a watercolor paper. That means you can't really move the color around. So I had to adjust to that, like I had to adjust my coloring to that. And it's totally possible, as you can see. It's just, it just takes some getting used to. My goal was to lay down a base color with the Inktense pencils, not worry too much about shading, just have a little bit of shading and blending towards white, towards the highlights, but not like go crazy with shadows and color intensity. I just wanted to have a base color. So that's what I'm going to do now for the rest of the Inktense coloration, and I'll catch you when we'll look at how we're going to refine this image with colored pencils. Alright, now that we are done with the base coloration, we will do some coloring with colored pencils. And the reason I'm doing it like this is because I have more control with colored pencils than I do with watercolors or any other type of coloring medium. So I'm using my colored pencils here, and I'm just going over the areas that have dried now. It's very important so you won't damage the paper. I am going over the previously colored areas to deepen some of the colors and to intensify them. And you can see just how easily I can do that, and just how much more alive the image looks once I add those more intense colors, or the deeper shades of color, the blending. You don't have to do that. If you're happy with the coloration you get with the Inktense pencils, of course skip the colored pencils part. You could of course also add the details with the Inktense pencils if you feel comfortable doing so. So there's no reason why you have to use another coloring medium. It's just something that I personally prefer and like to do. What I'm doing here also is I'm laying down the darkest color, and then I'm using a white pencil to blend out. And I have to say, the dark, like the colored pencils that I'm using are polychromos pencils, and the white pencil that I'm using is a Prismacolor pencil. The reason I'm using the Prismacolor one is that I feel that I can blend out much easier, and it's just, it's just more easy for me. But you have to experiment whatever works best for you. Now here's a close-up of when I was done with the coloration. It was a huge, super long process, and my camera actually stopped recording at some point. That's why I don't have the entire process, but I hope you got the basic idea. You can see here all the detail that I added to the dress thanks to the pencils, and here you can see the detail that I added with my pencils, darkening up the shadow areas and giving this image really dimension, making the ears look round, making the head look round. And here is the little mouse in its entirety. It took me quite a while. It probably took me over 2 hours to do this, but I've had an incredible amount of fun doing this. It was like creating this scene and then coloring it with the different coloring mediums to add depth and dimension to this image. It was just a huge amount of fun. You can see more close-ups on my blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you again soon. Bye bye.